Black History Month is alive and well on the campus of Kent State. I sat down with bus president Patrick Ferguson and discussed the history of the celebration.
And an Italian senator's immunity was dropped. We'll let you know what charges he could face. Portage Call starts right now.
New Hampshire primaries were earlier this week, and Ohio's primary is just around the corner. I'll break down both of them in just a few minutes.
Happy Valentine's Day, Portage County. I'm Dante Setafonte.
And I'm Erin Sullivan. We'd like to start our show today by remembering the lives lost in the February 14th mass shooting in Parkland, Florida. Today marks 2 years since the shooting. 17 people were killed, 14 students and 3 staff members, when a gunman stormed the campus on February 14th, 2018.
The shooter was 19 at the time. He confessed to the killing and faces the death penalty. If convicted, Florida's governor has ordered all flags to be flown at half-staff Friday in remembrance of the victims. Schools in Broward County will be released early to allow students, teachers, and staffs to be with their friends and families.
A moment of silence will be held at the school in South Florida at 10:17 Friday morning. The shooting actually began at 2:20 p.m. on that tragic day. 10:17 was selected to denote the 17 victims who were killed.
The supporters of Ohio Governor Mike DeWine's gun bill are trying out a new approach to get the bill through the state Senate. A political nonprofit organization called Standing By Ohio has launched a digital and direct mail ad campaign specifically aimed at pressuring the bill to be passed. By clicking on their ads, it will redirect users to their website where citizens can fill out prompts to contact their state senator.
A new Ohio House bill could ban conversion therapy, a religious-focused therapy used to end same-sex relationships. Most people attending these programs are teenagers and young adults. Columbus Representative Mary Lightbody is sponsoring the bill and said, quote, "This legislation affirms the right of young people to develop their own gender identity, gender expression, or sexual orientation without those in the medical community trying to change their minds." And drivers could be more likely to be pulled over in the upcoming months for using holding their smartphones behind the wheel. Governor Mike DeWine has backed new legislation to expand the state's distracted driving laws. The hand-free Ohio bill could allow officers to pull over drivers for simply not seeing their hands. DeWine hopes this bill will prevent fatal crashes and the amount of drivers using their devices behind the wheel.
Ohio has proposed a new law that represents parts of the state with a large Amish population. The possible law would toughen visibility requirements and buggies and other horse-drawn vehicles to reduce crashes. The current state law on this matter requires horse-drawn vehicles to display either reflective tape or a slow-moving vehicle emblem, as well as a light that must be turned on at dusk or at night. Well, Ohio Attorney General Dave Yost will be taking a complaint from the state Republican Party regarding the Democratic candidate for Ohio's 14th, Hillary O'Connor Muriel. The attorney from Paynesville is facing allegations for voting in the Buckeye State, as well as California in the 2008 presidential primary. The former naval officer was a law student at San Diego State at the time, and she said, quote, "I can't fathom why records show she sends an absentee ballot to Ohio at the time."
A new Ohio Supreme Court task force will be examining ways to avoid wrongful convictions. The Task Force on Conviction and Post-Conviction Integrity Review will meet in the upcoming weeks to analyze legal review processes in Ohio. The panel is expected to issue recommendations by the end of this year, which will include revisions to state law and how to process DNA testing into proceedings. And in the studio today, we have representatives from the Black United Students. Our Dante Centofanti is with them right now. Hi, Dante.
Thanks, Aaron. I'm here with the Black United Students of Kent State who have agreed to take times out of their busy schedule to meet with us here at TV2. Guys, thank you so much for taking the time to meet with us.
Thank you.
Just start off by introducing yourselves, telling us your names, in your positions with the Black United Students.
My name is Patrick Ferguson. I am the president of Black United Students.
My name is Taja Hines. I'm Director of Student Relations and Academic Affairs for Black United Students.
Hello, my name is Nico Rush. I am the current Political Affairs and Grievances Chair.
Okay, guys, thank you. And just start off by telling us the pride that you guys feel as Kent State students and also Black Kent State students with Black History Month originating here at Kent State, and just the pride that you guys feel.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, just to reiterate that Black United Students being the first Black student union in America, and also being the first to celebrate Black History Month with KSU professors, we take great pride in celebrating the month, putting together events for the month. I feel like that unification piece is what really drives why we want to make sure the calendar itself is jam-packed with a lot of events, and then we're doing the appropriate collaborations. So yeah, I feel like we have great integrity for it.
I feel very prideful to be Black at Kent State, especially with all the different Black organizations that we have here that started around the same time BUS did, and just like how historical it is. And it's only here at Kent. It's only here at Kent State. And I just feel like that's really significant to me because I have a strong pride in my history and my culture. So.
I recently just joined BUS, and I also just recently learned that about like them. I knew that they had created Black History Month, but I didn't know like how it started. So it was really cool that like I joined BUS during Black History Month, during this historic period of time, which is really cool. And I wanted to join for a while, and now I finally did. But it's just really cool just being a part of a group that like has a legacy and has history, and continues that legacy and that history. And it's just really nice just to be a part of an org that continues to create, promote, and like to just work with the community here at Kent State.
Okay, guys, let's get into the election 2020. Andrew Yang dropping out the other day, leaving no candidates in the Democratic field who are of color. Kamala Harris dropping out, Cory Booker before them. And seeing the debate, you know, every time the election season comes along, there's every candidate, Republican, Democrat, and also black-white. The talk is always of how can we secure the black vote. But do you guys feel that the black vote is being taken for granted in any way? How do you guys feel about that?
That's a good question.
That
I
is
have
a
to
really
think about
good
that one.
question.
I mean, I wouldn't know. For me personally, I don't know if it's taken for granted or if it's just being used overall. Just because a lot of the candidates so far, and most elections since this country's inception, hasn't really actually cared for Black and brown folks, especially Black folks. They just have not actually cared within. Because if that was the case, they would actually fix the problems. But like, we still have poverty, we still have racism, we're still not being paid the same amount, we still are being gentrified, redlining. So like, we have all these issues that are still happening. If candidates really were for the Black community, if they really want the black vote, they will do that, but they're not doing that. So in my opinion, it's not that they're being taken for granted, they're just being used for votes, essentially, in my opinion.
I agree with Nico.
I agree.
I agree, strongly agree with Nico. Another thing to like add on to that, I feel as though, yeah, they just you said a lot. You said a lot. You said a lot. Like we're being used in a way, in a sense. And some of the histories of the candidates in the Democratic Party that we have is like they overlook black folks, or they pushed agendas and policies that hinder black folks that just
It's infallible. I feel like, yeah, and looking at the longevity of it too, it's just not there. They're not looking at these crucial issues and thinking of the longevity and how it's going to be impacting individual lives. So that's where I
Final question, Mr. President. I think it would be fair to lead this question with you. Talk about tomorrow's festivities honoring the anniversary of Black History Month.
Yes.
Where it's going to be, what it's about, who's going to be there.
I'll definitely reiterate, and Black United Students as a whole is super excited about this event. It's the 50th commemoration of the celebration of Black History Month. It will be held in Cartwright Hall tomorrow, Saturday, the 15th at 3 o'clock. I'll be speaking. I'll be speaking on the then portion of us, and then the now portion on what current climate that we're in. We have some past executive board members of Black United Students that hold a place on the Black Alumni Association. They'll be speaking. And then we also have our president, Todd Dyken, speaking also. But yeah, I feel like it's going to be very eventful. I would want it to be as insightful to the community as any other event. But yeah, please come out, come out.
This is following the demands that you and the Students for a Democratic Society gave this week. You said President Dyken will speak tomorrow.
Yes.
What do you hope that he will say and address tomorrow, guys?
What would you guys like to say?
I just hope he is transparent and he tells what's going on and he doesn't overlook that like nothing happened. I just feel like that transparency piece is important because that is stated in the demands and that is something that the students asked for, and that was a big grievance within that as well. So that can be his first step to addressing those demands and those needs of the students by being transparent on what happened and letting the community know, like, I know what's going on.
Best case scenario, he says, I got y'all, I'll do it. I've listened, I read, I get it, I've seen the data, because there's a lot of data everywhere. And he's just like, y'all, I got y'all, bet. And then, punto, we're done.
Okay, guys, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to come visit with us and articulate Black History Month in its true essence and talk about the demands and things you guys have been activating for this week. Thank you so much for your time.
When we come back, I'll break down the past New Hampshire primaries and the Ohio primaries that are right around the corner.
South Carolina Republicans are planning to meddle with the upcoming Democratic primary results. Find out more coming up soon.
This is Portage County's TV2, broadcasting from the campus of Kent State University, streaming online at kentwired.com.
Welcome back to Portage Pulse. The latest in the presidential primaries happened this week.
Here to break it down for us is our reporter, Ayuma Godfrey. Hi, Ayuma.
Hi, Erin. Taking a look at New Hampshire primaries, Senator Bernie Sanders came in first place. Pete Buttigieg came in second, shocking the nation once again, as many thought that the frontrunners would be Warren and Sanders. With this primary and the Iowa caucus, the numbers are rewritten, and it seems that Bernie Sanders and Pete Buttigieg may be battling it out. Buttigieg still sits in the lead with 23 delegates total, and Sanders is at 21. Nevada primaries are happening on February 22nd. While our own primaries aren't for another month, let's break down some of the important information to know. The registration deadline is upcoming Tuesday to be able to vote in the primary. You must re-register if you've had a recent change of address. To check in with your polling place, you'll need a form of identification that matches the address on file in the voter registration database. You will not be able to vote if you do not have it with you. And what's exactly on the ballot? For starters, the Democratic candidates are the big ticket item that will bring most people out to the polls. There's also local tax levies as well as other local positions. For who and what's on the ballot in Portage County, you can visit the Portage County Board of Elections website. And that's all I have for you today. Make sure you register to vote before the deadline. I'm Ayuma Godfrey. Happy Valentine's Day, Portage County.
Thank you so much. Republicans don't have a primary to vote in, but that doesn't mean they won't make their voices heard. Some of them are banding together to vote for Democrats they think will help them win. CNN's Lauren Fox explains.
Conservatives in South Carolina pushing for Republican voters to disrupt the upcoming Democratic primary.
You know, I guess you could call it meddling.
One grassroots organizer, Christopher Sullivan, calling it, quote, Operation Chaos, a nod to Rush Limbaugh's 2008 effort to encourage Republicans to vote in Democratic primaries and keep Hillary Clinton in the race longer to hurt Barack Obama.
I would love to see the Democrats, whoever wins the South Carolina Democrat primary, for everybody else to accuse him of having stolen the election because he was actually elected with Republican support and therefore prolong the chaos and the disruption.
It's also the latest obstacle for Joe Biden, who needs a victory in South Carolina to bolster his campaign.
Our votes count too.
Biden was expected to win South Carolina. We wanted to disrupt what was expected.
South Carolina has an open primary, allowing eligible voters to cast ballots in either party's primary. Conservatives have complained for years it's resulted in Democrats boosting moderate Republicans in the state. With South Carolina's Republican presidential primary canceled this year, conservative leader Karen Martin said she saw an opportunity to finally give Democrats a dose of their own medicine.
We thought, aha, what would happen if we made a grassroots statewide effort to cross over and vote for one candidate in the Democratic primary?
Martin is pushing for voters to back one candidate, Bernie Sanders. Others say they're leaving it up to the voters.
Just for the sake of optics, it would be great to be able to contrast the ideology of an avowed socialist against a capitalist.
The campaigns have caught the attention of Biden's team, including surrogate and state senator Marlon Kimpson. He says Republicans in the state fear Joe Biden in a one-on-one matchup with Trump.
They are trying to interfere with this election to choose the weakest candidate because they know without cheating, Donald Trump will not be reelected.
Michelle Caruso-Cabarra, CNNBC's former chief international correspondent, is seeking to unseat the progressive leader Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Why is she running? She said, "I am the daughter of working-class immigrants. I am so lucky to have a wonderful career, and I want everyone to have the same opportunity I've had." CNBC said Cabarra will no longer appear on their show now that she is a candidate.
Tweets. President Trump is arguably the most influential creator of the 2 to 4 sentence message on the planet. But Attorney General William Barr has had enough of them. He complained yesterday about President Trump's tweets regarding federal cases, saying they, quote, make it impossible for me to do my job, end quote. He also said that he won't be, quote, bullied, end quote, into doing the president's bidding. This after the president criticized the jury in the case against his former campaign staffer, Roger Stone. Andrew Yang has dropped out of the 2020 Democratic race. In New Hampshire Tuesday at the primaries, he announced to a crowd that he is a math guy, and judging by the numbers, he sees that he cannot win this race. Yang wrote a book titled The War on Normal People and appealed to voters warning about the dangers of tech. He campaigned for mental health reform and universal basic income, had a certain appeal to young voters, and has not yet announced who he will be endorsing for 2020.
My goal when I first started running was to solve the problems that got Donald Trump elected. In order to do that, I will support whoever is the Democratic nominee.
Trump's former communications director, Hope Hicks, returns to the White House as a senior advisor. Before leaving the White House in 2018, Hicks told a U.S. congressional committee during the Mueller investigation that she occasionally told white lies for Trump, though she insisted she had not lied about anything relevant to the investigation. She has come back to serve as a counselor to Trump and to push for his re-election. The leader of Italy's popular populist party has been stripped of legal immunity and could face a criminal trial. We'll have more coming up.
Well, South Bend does it like nobody does, and Mayor Pete was the embodiment of it this week. Stay tuned as Portage Pulse rolls on.
Sudan says it will pay $30 million to the families of the 17 U.S. sailors killed in the bombing of USS Cole. Al-Qaeda attacked the warship at Port Adan, Yemen, 20 years ago. A U.S. court found Sudan provided aid to the terror group. Sudan denies responsibility, but wants off the U.S. list of terror sponsors.
A tragedy far from home that would sow the seeds for the September 11 attacks on U.S. soil. More than 200 American, Tanzanian, and Kenyan lives lost in the 1998 twin bombings of the U.S. embassies in Dar es Salaam and Nairobi. 2 years later, 17 American servicemen murdered in the attack on the USS Cole in Yemen. The U.S. blamed Osama bin Laden, but they said he'd had help from his then host nation of Sudan.
It's a constant reminder that people wear a uniform, make sacrifices.
An acknowledgement for the families of the American victims, at least. Sudan Justice Minister Nasruddin Abdelbari said Sudan has agreed to pay victims' families $30 million. As part of our efforts to remove Sudan's name from the U.S. state sponsors of terror list, on February 7th, an agreement was signed with the families of the victims of the 2000 USS Cole attack. We entered into this agreement out of a keenness to settle the historic allegations of terrorism created by the former regime. Last year, we reported on the Sudanese regime's brutal crackdown on pro-democracy demonstrators. Winning a settlement for American families has been a key priority for the Trump administration. Even as the litany of torture and death grew, we discovered the U.S. was continuing normalization talks with now deposed dictator Omar Hassan al-Bashir. For victims' families, this means closure. For Sudan, this is the beginning of the journey back in from the cold. In the aftermath of the country's historic revolution, Sudan is desperately in need of a fresh start. The hope is that these settlements and renewed U.S. support will pave the way for much-needed debt relief and a brighter future for the country and its people. Naam al-Bagher, CNN, London.
Over 1,700 frontline medics have been infected with the coronavirus. At Wuhan No. 7 hospital, 2/3 of the ICU were infected due to a shortage of medical resources. Hospitals repeatedly called for donations on social media. The government is said to be delayed in its responses to the outbreak. A Wuhan doctor that died from the virus had tried to warn others early in the outbreak, but was punished by police for reporting spreading rumors.
The Italian Senate voted 156 to 76 to lift immunity for former Interior Minister Matteo Salvini. With the lack of immunity, Salvini faces potential charges for aggravated kidnapping related to keeping 131 migrants on board an Italian Coast Guard ship in July of 2019. The decision to keep migrants aboard was part of a government policy to keep migrants from coming into the country. Now it's the court's decisions of whether or not they will go forward with trying to prosecute the former Interior Minister.
Human rights groups have reported that at least 71 people have been killed and 325 injured in a Syrian airstrike. The airstrike occurred in rebel-held eastern Ghouta after a Syrian government launched a series of airstrikes. This area has been surrounded by Syrian forces for several years, but conflict has increased after a conducted-at-large offensive last May.
Prince Harry and his wife Meghan are closing their office at Buckingham Palace. It's leading to some layoffs of 15 employees called redundancies in England. The couple apparently no longer needs an office at the Queen's main London residence since they stepped back from their roles as senior members of the royal family last month. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex chose to give up their royal titles and give up some state funding after the royal exit announcement. The couple left for Canada with their son Archie and are working to become financially independent. They have said they plan to spend more time in North America. And take a look at how a Democratic frontrunner is cutting footloose.
Running for president is a delicate dance, especially if it involves actual dancing. Pete Buttigieg's strong start in 2 states has brought extra scrutiny, not just on his policy, but on his dance moves.
Yes, Aaron, he's great at raising campaign funds, but when it comes to raising the roof, some might say he's not even raising a tent. CNN's Janine Moos reports.
For a presidential frontrunner, getting critiqued on your dance moves is a rite of passage, especially if you don't pass. Pete Buttigieg tried to raise the roof and ended up raising eyebrows. That roof is going to collapse. His movements were compared to a robot's, to the stars of The Office.
My hump, my lovely lady lump. Check it out.
Mayor Pete's roof-raising partner has made this her signature move. After she did it at last year's State of the Union, Congresswoman Annie Custer was spoofed on SNL.
Annie raised the roof custom.
Raise the roof and break that glass ceiling.
Now she's outperforming Pete. And check out the Elizabeth Warren supporter with her sign trying to butt into Buttigieg's shot. No one expected the candidate to actually raise the roof. Dancing is always hazardous to a politician's pride. But you're a stick in the mud if you don't groove to the music.
Wow, she is really rocking a every chaperone at the 8th grade dance vibe.
Instead of raising the roof, Mayor Pete raised a lot of questions. For instance, what does it really look like he's doing? This is a stick-up.
You're raising the roof, Pete. You aren't being held up at gunpoint. It's like...
This is me when I'm not sure if I remembered to put deodorant on.
I think the less people see me dancing, the better.
He's so adorkable, tweeted one fan. If you're trying to win the dork demo, maybe it pays to shake your... Jeannie Mo, CNN.
10, 9,
New York.
Always great reporting by Gene. That wraps up the week in politics, Portage County. Tonight's Kent Core has a new episode at 9, perfect for Valentine's Day.
I'm Erin Sullivan.
And I'm Dante Setafonte. From all of us at Portage Pulse, have a wonderful weekend.